What is going on, guys? It is Wrestlelamia here, back with some more news. Join us now as we look at the wildest news stories and rumors you need to know, including a WWE legend's son found murdered, Kenny Omega talks the likelihood of a WWE AEW crossover, Nikki Ash gets booed, a riot at a wrestling show, and much more. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos, and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Now let's hit the intro and get straight into the first story. Our first story looks at an incredibly sad piece of news as a WWE legend's son has been found murdered. Now, unfortunately, topping the news today is a shocking story concerning WWE legend Brian Blair's son Brett, who was reportedly found murdered. Brian Blair, notable for his run in the WWF as a member of the tag team The Killer Bees, friend Steve Kern announced Blair's passing at a fan fest on 23rd July, and now Dave Meltzer is reporting Brett was murdered and he was found in a construction site a couple of days ago. There's no answers, there's no clues that I know of, and I heard from Brian Blair a couple of times today. It's just a horrible, horrible story that he's going through. His entire family is going through it. I feel so bad. Brett, who was named after Bret Hart, was 29 years old, and there's really not a lot more other than it's been a horrible, horrible period. We'll continue following the story as we find any updates, and would like to send our condolences to the Blair family and their friends during this unbelievably hard time. Next up, Kenny Omega talks in AEW WWE crossover. All Elite Wrestling has formed a number of business relationships with other promotions, including New Japan Pro Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, AAA, and the National Wrestling Alliance, showing it's willing to do business with anyone. However, what of the WWE? Well, AEW Vice President Kenny Omega discussed the situation when he chatted with Dave Meltzer on the Wrestling Observer Radio. The one huge crossover, will you ever see WWE team up with anybody? Well, who knows, I feel as if the world evolves and changes, and as time goes by, people become more open-minded to everything, whether it be wrestlers themselves, people in the office, the fans. I wouldn't hold my breath, but at the same time, I would never say it's impossible. And while it's unlikely that AEW and the WWE will ever work together, fans know anything can happen in the WWE or in the world of wrestling. Next up, Nikki Ash booed at a house show. Has Nikki Ash lost her shine already? Ash recently defended a newly won Raw Women's Championship at 2 house shows, one in Pittsburgh and one in Louisville. However, Dave Meltzer reported on the Wrestling Observer Radio that the reaction to Ash may not be getting over with fans at house shows. Both nights worse in Pittsburgh than Louisville, but it was there both nights as that Nikki Cross's superhero gimmick that everybody loves and everything is not working for the house show crowd. They don't take her seriously. She was actually booed in Pittsburgh. Not heavily booed, but booed. It's difficult to assess Meltzer's report based on one account from a house show. It's not unusual for babyfaces to get booed, and it's obvious that Nikki's new persona won't be everyone's favourite given her cartoonish and quite childish character. Meltzer elaborated further on why Nikki didn't receive a hot reaction. Louisville, I didn't hear her being booed, but I heard she came out and got a nice reaction. And then once the match started, people didn't want to see her. They just see, and no surprise, they see Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair as big stars and Nikki as an intruder in the match. Also, since she's the champion, she ends up winning. She has to win. That was one of the notable things from everyone I heard from both nights, was the Nikki Cross thing was not working. You would know that from TV. That seems premature to judge the reaction of fans from one house show as any evidence of whether Nikki's new character is getting over. That's worth noting, but at this point it seems far too early to say she's failed, especially in light of the hot reaction on television. It's important to remember that the WWE typically doesn't let fans' reactions affect how it pushes a character, regardless of whether the fans boo or cheer. So even if Nikki starts getting booed, it's likely the WWE will give her time to get over, seeing if she reaches the demographic of kids, especially girls. Nikki's almost a superhero character has been a breath of fresh air in a stale Raw Women's division that has failed to produce any new stars from the existing undercard. Thankfully for Nikki, WWE officials, including Vinnie Mac himself, are said to be high on her character, and they see plenty of potential with her in terms of marketing her to kids and bringing in the bucks via merchandise. What do you think of a new character? Let us know in the comments down below. Next up, a potential spoiler on AEW's big live event announcement. AEW President Tony Khan is making an announcement on the 28th July Dynamite about a big live event, and as we reported last week, the event is likely going to take place in Chicago. According to BodySlam.net's Cassidy Haynes, Khan flew to Chicago last week, reportedly conducting business in Chicago's United Center. Cultaholic's Jack Atkins speculated further, it is believed that AEW wants to make Chicago its number 2 market, running the upcoming trio of Dynamite, Rampage and All Out from the Windy City in September. AEW plans to run every all-out event from Chicago and previously ran a Thanksgiving Eve edition of Dynamite in Chicago in 2019. Therefore, this could possibly be setting up a huge Thanksgiving 2021 show in Chicago, and with the United Center having a capacity of around 20,000 to 23,000, it'd make for a very big show indeed. With CM Punk reportedly scheduled to work in AEW, the promotion would do well to promote key events in Chicago, so long as it doesn't book them too often. Next up, a riot at a wrestling show. Did fans riot at a recent indie show where Matt Cardona won the Game Changer Wrestling World Championship after beating Nick Gage? A fan supposedly threw bottles and a pizza cutter at Cardona following his win, leading to the Wrestling Observer's Dave Meltzer criticizing the situation. GCW followed by releasing a t-shirt containing Meltzer's comments. Here's what Dave had to say. In the thing with Game Changer, it was a setup spot. They did have plants throwing empty bottles that wouldn't hurt anything to get other people to do it, so they were encouraging it. Most of the people did throw empty bottles, it was mostly safe. When Matt Cardona left, they didn't throw anything because they all knew the game, so they were safe. However, Meltzer explained the potential dangers with plants throwing the bottles, but there were also full bottles thrown. Not a lot, all it takes is one person who doesn't know the game and he wants to get in on it, and he hits a fan or hits a wrestler and he hurts somewhere, and it's effed and it's needless. I know this makes me out to be the bad guy, but I find this to be encouragement of this is ridiculous, because it's not worth the risk. Regardless of whether it was a setup, the situation does raise questions about encouraging fans to misbehave. Similar misbehavior could lead to injuries and promoters cancelling shows. Although it may be a stretch, it could also lead to venues refusing to run pro wrestling shows due to liability issues. Next up, a potential reason for Karrion Kross jobbing to Jeff Hardy. The fans are still losing their minds over NXT champion Karrion Kross losing to Jeff Hardy in Kross's Raw debut, but the Madman podcast Andrew Zarian claims it's all part of the WWE's plan, with Zarian reporting someone in the WWE explained, "I don't know why everyone is freaking out about this, it's just one step in the direction we have for Kross, and this is leading into something." Knowing how the WWE plans also lead to dead ends, it's understandable why Kross fans are concerned, but at this point all they can do is wait and see what develops. And finally, The Rock coming to The Simpsons. Last but not least is The Rock coming to Fox's long-running cartoon comedy The Simpsons. And while nothing has been confirmed, Yeardley Smith, who voices character Lisa Simpson, reportedly told fans she's looking for a visit from the most electrifying man in sports entertainment. One of the show's writers explained, "There is a story that we came up with, Lisa and The Rock, but we don't know yet. We're still hoping The Rock will hear from us. If anybody knows The Rock, tell him that we want that." And it's possible the Simpsons producers already are working to make this happen, as anytime you hear a comment like, "If anybody knows The Rock, tell him that we want that," you know you're hearing Hollywood spin. But there you have it guys, the wildest news stories and rumors you need to know. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.